Alright, so the kiln is empty, and you can see how the back wall is kind of set up. Probably should have had the secondary exit flue, at least the big one up top, kind of choked off, and because I think a lot of the heat really stayed towards the top, you can see that it got hotter than the bottom. I think I needed to bring some heat down at the bottom. You'll see some of the cone packs from the bottom, and that they didn't really get hot down there, and some of the glazes didn't melt, which sometimes wasn't a matter of getting hot enough, it just, stupid glazes didn't melt. So, got the door all unbricked, and a bunch of ugly pots, which is fine. It was just experimental. The point was to fire the kiln, so most of these are going to wind up in the trash. Boy, where do you start? See the cones up front, you know, were pretty well flattened. This was from the very back bottom. Again, not much action there. And these were more indicative of the rest of the kiln. Should have soaked it for longer. You know, again, first time through, and just kind of figuring these things out, which is fine. I won't forget next time. We did some ash glaze tests. We had some clay that we dug out of the yard from some sprinkler trenches last summer, and I noticed some of the dirt was hanging together pretty good, and so I thought, hey, this is clay. I bet we can use this in an ash glaze. And you kind of can, except the glaze didn't really flux. Let's see, that's super dry. And the reason for that is we actually made a pot out of that same clay, and that survived pretty much to cone 10 intact, which is not exactly earthenware. Kind of screwed it up, but so everything turned out real matte and real dark. And this is a different variation of some other clay we found on the property. This is a recipe we used that actually worked, which was a washed ash, and wasn't as heavy with that clay. So it did work. It did run. You can see it has kind of that beautiful, those rivulets running down the piece. You can see it here on a little test cup. Kind of what it did. Typical flashing on the lighter bodies, the porcelain and the B-mix. This is actually B-mix with grog, and this is one of the few pots the liner glaze actually melted in. I used a recipe that I found in some old letters from a friend who I did a wood fire with when I was 19, like 17 years ago, and I used that, and it didn't melt almost anywhere. It didn't get hot enough for long enough, and in addition to that, I think it just doesn't flux low enough. This is the Temecou over the that same liner where it did actually flux, but the Temecou did great all over the kiln. I mean, it definitely melted everywhere that I used it, and I'm not a big fan of brown. This is actually, again, over that liner glaze, and I used it like that a lot, and it really gave it more of a subtle, almost kind of a green effect. Some crystals in there. It did crystallize in a few spots. A number of the pieces did. This was a leach white, which, again, these glazes were mixed up in about an hour before I loaded. I glazed, loaded, and started warming the kiln up all in the same day. This whole project's kind of big and has been in a great, big, huge hurry, which is not really the way you want to do things in a great, big, huge hurry, because you make mistakes, and even sometimes you know you're making mistakes and you just keep going with it because you got to get it done. So definitely going to take our time before the next one, be a little more choosy with our glazes. This is a Shino. It's actually a Curie Shino. A lot of these glazes I got out of John Britt's Cone 10 book, which is a fantastic book. I'd recommend it to anybody. It's a real primer on glazing and firing, and it has just a dearth of glaze recipes and a lot of pictures of the samples fired in oxidation or reduction in 5 different cycles, and he's very thorough, and I really love the book. It'll be on the shelf in the studio for a long time. This is Shino. You can see a little cool orange peel crawl in there. This did great. The ash in the bottom kind of turned to that green bottled glass look, and I was pretty happy with it. I'm definitely going to use, and it's a real simple Shino. This is a Curie Shino, and it's in John Britt's book. And there's no spodamine in it, or spodumene, or however you pronounce it. It's very simple. I think it might have been like, I don't know, naphthalene cyanide and silica, or just like a suit, or I think it was naphthalene cyanide and I forget. Anyway, get the book. It's well worth it. You can get it online. You can get it used. You can get it new. Whatever. But it was a great book. This was that same disastrous ash glaze over porcelain slip on stoneware, and it just peeled up everywhere. So it does have kind of a cool look to it. If you're going for that, it's absolutely just this dry matte. And we're up here in the foothills with kind of this red dirt. You can see it, and that was just mixed with some unwashed fireplace ash. And this is what we wound up with, was this really dark glaze. But there was some fun stuff that did come out of it that we were pretty happy. My dog's just gotta love living in the forest. Anyway, so subsequent firings, we'll have more stuff coming out, and hopefully it'll be a little better than this. But we did have a great time. It's a good kiln. It's John Thies and Bill Van Gilder. It's the Monobagama, or however you say it. And it climbed really fast, and it wanted to run, and I let it. And I probably should have held it back a little bit in the earlier stages, because I did have some stuff crack pretty bad, which it could have been hairline cracks to start with. It's hard to say, depending on how because you can, this was maybe cracked while the glaze was still molten, or before the glaze went molten, because it is melted kind of around the edges. I mean, some of it's just poor construction, and the only way I had to bisque some of this stuff was in an old raku kiln, which is not really a good way to bisque anything. So a lot of it's pretty hack, but it's just a matter of getting the skills back. Not that I ever really had any, but it's been a fun process getting this done, but it's a tremendous amount of work. I built that thing by myself, and my wife helped me put the arch form in, and other than that, it was a kind of a one-man show. My son helped move bricks, and there's like 8 pallets of bricks in this thing, so it was definitely, I knew it was going to be a big project. I thought it would go quicker, but it takes a lot of time. You know, each brick has to be placed, one at a time, and very carefully done. And having never built a kiln before in my life, I decided to tackle it, because that's kind of what I do. And it worked out pretty good. Got a lot of help from the designers. The plans were very helpful. There was some difference between the plans and the photo CD, which caused some confusion, but at the end of the day, it's kiln and it fires, so it's okay. The chimney's actually just lumberyard fire brick. If you've noticed that it's different, that's actually just the medium duty lumberyard fire brick you can get, which is way cheaper than the high duty stuff, but it's not straight. A lot of variation, and it makes it a lot more difficult to work with, and takes a lot longer. So if you've absolutely got to save the money, you can do it, but I would just recommend getting the high duty stuff. Unless you can get medium duty that's nice and straight where you live, I couldn't. So the other thing is too, with that cheapo fire brick, I actually used a mix of some sifted castable refractory with the fire clay, because it was a little bit cementuous, and I knew that it would probably shrink less and whatnot